Hello everybody, it's Foo here, and today I will be talking all about a Recently, Weezing has got a lot of attention following the announcement of its upcoming Galarian form in Pokemon Sword and Shield, so I thought it would be an appropriate time to give Weezing's Team Rocket counterpart Arbok some attention in this overlooked buff series. If you do like this kind of content, please give this video a like because it really helps out my channel and also lets me know what you want to see more of, but if not, that's fine. So Arbok, signature Pokemon of Jessie in Team Rocket since Generation 1, this Pokemon has had a pretty rocky ride through the generations with very little competitive viability, all the way until about Generation 5 when the move Coil was introduced. Being a mono poison type is okay, it's pretty nice defensive typing, but offensively it was pretty irrelevant until Gen 6 with the introduction of fairies, which obviously was a big change, and fairies being weak to poison was really the only reason to use poison moves offensively. Its stats are definitely lackluster, it's very frail with only mediocre speed and attack, which points towards it being more of a physical attacker, but even then, 85 attack is really not very good, and 80 speed means lots of things will outspeed you with that pretty shaky bulk. Arbok's in a bad position here. Its abilities, on the other hand, are decent. Intimidate is great and means Arbok can actually usually survive one non-super effective physical attack, which is pretty nice. Shed Skin is also pretty neat to get rid of status, so if you get burned you can maybe shake that off and your physical attacks will still be doing some decent damage. Unnerve is probably the least useful of these abilities. It prevents the opponent from eating berries, which is a bit more situational, seeing as though Intimidate always works and Shed Skin it really helps with the status, so Unnerve is probably the least useful. And prior to Generation 7, despite this long boy getting the really nice move Glare to paralyze even ground types, all it really did was use a Coil set. But actually it's one of the best users of Coil in the entire game because it's kind of built to Coil. It gets an attack boost, which is very important for something that's meant to be a physical attacker, albeit not a very strong one. After that attack boost, it will be hitting quite a bit harder. And then you also get the accuracy boost, which is really important for Arbok because it allows it to use Gunk Shot reliably. This move is very powerful but inaccurate. After a Coil, that inaccuracy is forgotten because you always hit. That's so useful and really nice Coil. And then obviously with a defense boost, that also helps because if you're running an Intimidate set, it means that you're actually pretty bulky on that physical side. So Coil Arbok definitely was the most viable set prior to Generation 7. So what about the buffs in Generation 7? What can it do now? The first and most obvious one is that Arbok got an attack buff, which is really nice because, as I said, the stats are the thing that let this Pokemon down, and having plus 10 attack will be very helpful. Its attack stat goes from 85 to 95. 85 is a low base starting attack, and having plus 10 is actually quite a big difference in that. You'll see the returns really quickly, especially if you're boosting up with Coil, because that will get translated into your boost as well, so it will be hitting pretty hard with its Gunk Shots. The Coil set is obviously improved, but Arbok also gets Switcheroo, which means that a choice band set is not out of the question. You can run the 3 moves I mentioned before, Gunk Shot, Earthquake and Sucker Punch, and it also gets Aqua Tail to hit ground types a bit harder if you want to hit them, because obviously they resist your poison type moves too. So that's a pretty interesting one to consider. All in all, an attack buff is only a good thing and definitely improves this Pokemon. It means that its attack stat is not embarrassing anymore. The next buff is definitely a buff in quotation marks. I'm going to count this as half a buff because it's not really a direct buff. But I'm saying that there's a minor buff to Unnerve because this generation berries got a buff in general because of the 50% berries. So these are the berries that when your HP goes below 25%, they heal 50% of your HP. So these berries are really good and used quite a bit in competitive. and that means that blocking the use of these berries is actually a bit more valuable. So Unnerve is good in that respect. However, this is generally still worse than both of Arbok's other abilities because it is more situational. Though you are more likely to be blocking berries being eaten, I would say that Intimidate and Shed Skin are still much better. So it's half a buff because it is more useful now, but it still probably isn't useful enough to warrant use. Although, having said that, I'd be really interested to hear if any of you guys have used an Unnerve Arbok, so let me know in the comment section if you've tried this set out. So the only other thing that I want to talk about today are Z moves. Z moves are pretty big for Arbok, I would say. It's got some really nice options, and so we'll go into those now. There are 3 separate things that I want to talk about here. The first one is just generally offensive Z moves, and the big picture here is definitely Z Gunk Shot getting a very powerful acid downpour that obviously gets the added boost from Z moves of being 100% accurate. So Gunk Shot is a bit shaky sometimes, but when you turn it into acid downpour, it will always hit, and it will use that high base power of Gunk Shot to have a devastating nuke, and you can use this on all sorts of sets, but again, the coil set is still the most viable set for Arbok, so I would say probably in combination with that. But yeah, it's a really, really strong Z move. You can obviously run other offensive Z moves. Tectonic Rage is a good one to hit those steals and poisons, as I mentioned. Or again, you can run Aqua Tail to get a Hydro Vortex, and Aqua Tail has that shaky accuracy too, so it benefits from the accurate Hydro Vortex as well to hit the ground types. And then we'll move on to 2 separate status Z moves that I want to highlight. So there's Z Snatch or Z Switcheroo, although I'd always advocate Z Snatch. What these do are boost your speed by 2 stages. Z Snatch is better than Z Switcheroo because you could potentially steal an opponent's attack. Z Switcheroo just fails, whereas Z Snatch gives you the boost and it could steal one of your opponent's setup moves or healing moves or something like that. You could pair this with Coil and Gunk Shot and Earthquake for coverage. So Gunk Shot and Earthquake, generally those are the only coverage moves you need, and then you can have that Z Snatch, so you don't have to rely on Sucker Punch priority, because at +2 speed you'll be outspeeding pretty much everything. So that's really great. What's cool about this one is that the opponent really won't see this coming. It's definitely a snake in the grass, you could say. And what's even more ironic is that it's probably more of a Sucker Punch to the opponent than the Sucker Punch set. So I think this one's a really cool one to try, and sweeps are definitely not out of the question, just due to the sheer power of Gunk Shots after a coil, and with that speed, nothing being able to outspeed. It's a really interesting set, so I'd advocate giving it a try. And finally, you know I have to go weird, and we've got a pretty wacky one for our final set, which is Z Stockpile. It bolsters Arbok's shaky defenses, so you get the +1 defense and +1 special defense. And then if you use the Z version of Stockpile, it also gives you a full heal at the same time as giving you a +1 in defense and special defense. You can pair this with Poison Fang, which is a really nice poison move that has a 50% chance to badly poison the opponent, and then also Earthquake to hit the poisons and steals that are immune to the poison status. So that's pretty cool. So you can make like a bulky Arbok with either Intimidate or Shed Skin, and that Stockpile, Poison Fang, Earthquake. The final move, you can choose a few things, but I actually like using Rest paired with Shed Skin. Another really cool combo for just 2 moves you can run, because when you go for Rest, Shed Skin at the end of the turn has a 30% chance to activate. So you could go for Rest, and at the end of the turn, you have a 30% chance to be awake again, just a free full heal that turn, which is crazy. And obviously this will always protect you from status. You can rest whenever. And even if you don't get the Shed Skin activating first turn, you can get it activating the next turn. Basically, you can wake up early from Rest with Shed Skin, and it's really, really cool. So it's a pretty neat set. You just have to bear in mind that you're not very bulky before you set up these stockpiles. Even if you invest in your HP, you're still not the bulkiest thing. You can run Intimidate instead of Shed Skin to try to mitigate that and have a different final move. But yeah, it's an interesting one to try, like a stalling Arbok, one that you definitely don't see very often. But just to demonstrate how big Z-moves are for this Pokemon, that it gives it a completely different role and really changes what it can do. So it's definitely one versatile snake. There's only one more thing I want to mention. This Pokemon gets Stomping Tantrum. How? So that's Arbok. Let me know what you think in the comment section below and how you like to run this Cobra. After this video though, you might want to watch out as there could be snakes everywhere. If you enjoyed this, consider subbing to the channel and digging the bell so you don't miss out on any of my uploads. Also, follow me on Twitter where we can talk more about Mons and stuff. If you want to suggest a Pokemon that's been buffed in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, then you can do it over there. But that's going to be all for today. I've been foofootoo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.